Hello, welcome back. I'm a recovering addict named Richard coming at you from Recovery Resources here in South Florida. In the last video we talked a little bit about detox and the necessity of detox for certain things. Not everybody has that luxury. Again, consult with your physician before you even get started if you've been using heavily for a long time. Certain chemicals absolutely necessitate medical detox, and even your physician can help you with that. You don't necessarily have to go to a detox, but it's easier, One of the things about our addiction is it wasn't all about the drug itself. It wasn't all about that. There were other things that went into our using, and one of those things was the people that we associated with. These people, we went from being, pretty, empty inside and looking for other people that would approve of us, that would be okay with us and stuff. And when we started using, at least for me, when I started using, I found a whole group of people that would automatically accept me if I had drugs. Okay, we all used together and we had some fun times together. Well, I'm not going to try to tell you that every day that I ever had out there in active addiction was absolute horror. In the beginning it was a lot of parties and a lot of fun. We had a good time. Towards the end, those good times were over. Okay, the party was well over by the time I finally got ready to get clean. When I hit my bottom, those good times were gone. And one of the things that perpetuated my using was trying to get back there to those good times when I had those good times with those people and we had fun and it was all just great. That was over for me. Now in the end, it was just about hardcore addiction. And struggling to survive and use every day. That's where it took me. But being apart from getting clean, one of the things that we struggle with is giving up our friends, so-called friends that we were using with. If these people are really our friends, they really care about us personally, they're going to be very supportive of us trying to get clean. If not, they're not really your friends. They just want somebody, just like you did, that they can use around and feel comfortable around, because we need that social circle of people around us where we feel welcomed and approved of and are at least accepted. And again, as long as I was using, I had that with them. When it ran out, they were gone. When I got clean, these people weren't around for me. They didn't come to check up and see how I was doing. If I wasn't using, that was the end of our relationship. What I found was a circle of people that I could truly be a part of and experience true friendship for the first time in my life. A group of people that didn't want anything from me, that were looking for answers just like I was, that would be supportive of me in what I was doing. So, when I was giving up the drugs, getting clean, part of that process for me was letting go of that past with those people. I could recognize the heads when I was in high school, man. I mean, we all dressed kind of alike. We had concert t-shirts on and we talked a certain way and wore hair long and stuff like that. Back then I had more hair, but I could pick them out just like that, man. Just like, for some reason I could pick out cops just like that, the undercover cops. But I just had that knack, I could pick up on these people and immediately we had something in common and we could be friendly, So without that crutch, without my drugs, how was I going to have people around me that were supportive of me and truly were my friends? That was a difficult thing for me. What I got introduced to was a 12-step fellowship, actually a couple of them, but the one I selected for a very good reason, and I've been in that 12-step fellowship for the last 30 years, okay? It's been nothing but helpful to me. I don't know if, maybe you guys have had some experience with a 12-step fellowship, found it wanting, maybe you ran into some people that you didn't really care for. Listen, let me tell you, the fellowship is, any 12-step fellowship is founded on people. Okay, and they're going to be imperfect because people are imperfect. There's going to be some people you like, some people you don't like, but these people, you meet a group of friends and you build a support system. These people are going to help you. Okay, they're going to help support you. You can call them if you wake up in the middle of the night, you had a using dream. This is perfectly normal. When I first got clean, I used to have these using dreams. I'd dream about using it. I'd wake up and I'd have the cold sweats and I'd have all the stuff going on, and I'd feel terrible and I'd feel guilty, and it was so vivid and so real, that, I was like, oh my God, I went out and used again, but it wasn't true. These dreams were very, very real and very, very disturbing. But what I realized was, during the process of these dreams when I was using, how did I feel? Okay? What I felt was horrified. What I felt was guilt. Okay? I felt this shame and guilt and remorse about the very process of using. And this was something brand new for me. Because there was a time when using would have just been, where can I get more? Oh, that was great, where's more? Now, when I was, when I had this dream about using, I felt guilt, man, and this was a new sensation for me. I had to look at that, I had to look at the fact that, as horrible as I felt, it took me back to those days of when I first started looking for answers, and I first started struggling with trying to get clean. It took me right back there to those feelings of hating myself, to those feelings of frustration of, this wasn't going to happen again. I wasn't going to do this again. And here I am again. What's the matter with me? And trying to figure it all out, and having that torment, that absolute emotional torment of having used again, feeling terrible about it, never wanting to do it again, but at the same time wondering where I can get more. It's like living in hell. And when I had these using dreams after I first got clean, what it reminded me of was why I'm doing what I'm doing now. Because I don't ever want to have to go back and feel that way again. I don't ever want to have to experience that hell again. And whatever I have to do to make sure that my life doesn't degenerate back into what that was like is not too much to ask. Whatever price I got to pay to get to keep from ever going back to that point is fine by me. Okay? It doesn't take any earth-shattering thing. Listen, being in a 12-step fellowship is a gift. You're around a whole bunch of other people with varying lengths of time clean, and they're willing to help you. They're willing to give you the benefit of their experience, okay, and share with you how they got through it. Take you to coffee after, we used to play Frisbee till midnight in the parking lots and have fun. We'd go to each other's houses and watch football and boxing and have a great time and yell and do all the things that normal people do. And we had fun, man, and we had fun clean. And this was important, Being clean isn't about being, some drudgery, or some militaristic boot camp discipline or anything like that. It's supposed to be fun, man. You're supposed to get out and I'd go to dances all night long and dance all night, That was something new for me. I didn't dance because I was so self-conscious, I was sure everybody was looking at me, but I got to the point where I could go out and dance with ladies all night long and have a good time. And remember it the next day, wake up and I knew where I was and how I got there and where my car was, and I had all my clothes with me and everything. That was cool. It was all brand new, There's every reason to celebrate recovery, man, and these people are all about it. The fellowship that I initiated into is the Fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous. Now, any fellowship is going to be imperfect, like I said, but, this fellowship has saved my life. These people will call me, I call them, we go out, we hang out together, we go to meetings together, we share with each other, when something's going on, we're helping each other out, we're there for each other, man. We're there for each other in a way that my using buddies never were. We talk to each other on a level of vulnerability that I never would have considered with anybody else, and it's okay. I've laughed with these people, I've cried with these people, I've spent my life with these people, man, and it's been great, I've been able to do a lot of things that I'd only ever dreamed of doing, and it gave me the freedom to do that. Recovery has done that for me, Has it all been sunshine and rainbows all the time? Not at all, and anybody that tells you that, being in recovery is always going to be this wonderful, wonderful experience, they're not telling you the whole truth. They're either that or they're deluded, okay? Because it's just life on life's terms, Things are going to happen to us during the course of our recovery as we stay clean. We stay clean long enough, we're going to experience a whole lot of different things that come along with anybody having a normal life, And we're going to have to deal with those things. We're going to have to deal with grief. We're going to have to deal with sorrow. We're going to have to deal with success, and that can be a challenge for us. We're going to explore some of that too, because a lot of us deep down feel like, we're not meant to succeed, or we don't deserve to succeed, but we do. Okay. And building the self-esteem to feel that way about ourselves is through this process of working this step work. Okay. The Fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous printed this book in 1972. This is the basic text of Narcotics Anonymous, and this is the book that has informed my life for a great deal of time. Let me tell you why this is an extraordinary document. This book was not written by some hyper-intelligent guy that sat down and thought it up. It wasn't written by a couple of guys that thought it up and had some mystical experience. It was written by a consortium of addicts. In other words, it was written by hundreds of people, okay? When Narcotics Anonymous first founded the World Service Office, they needed an office where people could kind of congregate and direct their attention to and sort things out. So people were sending in material on pieces of paper, and they'd send in, they'd write something about recovery, they'd send it to the World Service Office. Sometimes this stuff was written on the back of a paper bag. Sometimes it was on some nice letterhead, sometimes whatever, but all this different stuff. And they had it all in these big containers, all this morass, this huge volume of material. So what they did was they got together this very large committee of people to sort through all this stuff, and that's where this book came from. This came from all these people, all these addicts sending stuff into them, and then this huge group of people, this body of people that formed this committee, going through all that stuff and organizing it, and they pick something up and they look at it and they say, is this true for all or most addicts? And if it was, then it made its way into different sections, and those sections ended up becoming chapters of this book. I know one of the people personally that was involved in that. His name's Gary, and tremendous guy, and we owe a great debt to these people. But the way this was written by all these different people agreeing on what this is all about, what it tells us is that if it's in there, it's true for all our most addicts, okay, and it's certainly been true for me, okay. This talks to me about recovery. This talks to me about the realities of my addiction, but it also talks to me about recovery, and that's the much more important thing. It's important to be in touch with, how we felt during our addiction, what it did to our lives, how it changed us into somebody that we didn't even want to be. Like this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde business, that's important to understand, But what's even more important is what do we do about it, And if they put it in this book, here's the issue that we had. They also came with a solution, okay? And these solutions have helped people, millions of people, all over the world. All over the world. And this book is printed in almost every language known to man. And it's been made available to people all over the world, and it has worked for those people just like me and you. Okay, there's nothing so special about me that makes me, super qualified for recovery that you can't have as well. I was willing to put in the work, and I've done a lot of work over the last 30 years. So one of the, let me just introduce you to one of the things here that's compelling about this book. That in the very first chapter of this book, on the very first page, in the second paragraph, one of the first things it says is that, many of us believe that our addiction was present long before the first time we used. Now, why would that be the first thing that they told us? Why is that the first thing in this book that they made clear to us? Because they're telling us from the beginning that addiction was there before we ever used, that we've always been an addict, And when I look at the stories from my life, the examples from my life, I can see how that was true for me. So when you pick up this book and you start working through some of these workbook sections, all of this, the workbook section of this was taken directly from this book, okay? And I have the permission of Narcotics Anonymous World Service Office to use this book in this book, okay? They gave me written consent to do so. Just in case anybody's wondering about trademark infringement or copyright infringement, they gave me written consent to use this material in the Narcotics Anonymous basic text to write my book, okay, right here, all right? And after 30 years of reading this book, I've learned a few things that I put into this book, okay? Over the years, over the decades that I've been reading this book, every time I read it, I'd learn something new. I learned something that was really telling, and I'd rework something in my mind about what they were saying, or understand it in a different way, and it made sense to me, And it took me a long time, a long process to go through all this stuff. You can read it first time through superficially and say, oh yeah, I understand that, but do you really? Because read it again and you get something different out of it. So what you've got here in this book is my 30 years of experience working from this book and learning not just from this book, but from my life that as it's been informed by recovery, and how I've lived and how I've tried to grow in recovery, We're going to talk about step work. We're going to talk about some very important things, A lot of times people misunderstand what the steps are all about. So let me just tell you real quick that, a lot of times people with experience with the fellowships, with the 12-step fellowships, they hear, oh, once you get the first step, there you have it, you're all done. You're going to stay clean after the first step. The first step of Narcotics Anonymous says that we admitted that we were powerless over our addiction, that our lives had become unmanageable. First of all, we admitted this. This is a we program. This is a group of people all together helping each other. Okay, it's not just about me. It's not me doing it alone. It's me utilizing this fellowship and the people that really care about me. So I can look at that and I can understand that powerlessness is the inability to control my using. That once I put some drug into my body, I don't know what's going to happen after that. I can be pretty sure of, that I'm going to not have any choices anymore. And I'll tell you this much, I knew I was powerless even when I was still using, okay? I knew that. It wasn't a revelation to me. And the way I can tell you that is because when I get paid on a Friday, I would go out to the gas station, fill up my car with gas, and buy a carton of cigarettes first. Why? Because I knew that once I got started, by the end of the weekend, I was going to be flat broke, wouldn't have any money. And if I didn't do those two things first, I wasn't going to have gas to get to work to make more money to go use again. And I wasn't going to have cigarettes to get through the rest of the week. So it was me trying to manage my addiction. Even then, I understood powerless. Okay? Powerless is like if, I used to work on my car a lot. I spent a lot of time working on cars. A lot of it because I had no choice. I wasn't able to afford a mechanic, so I had to get under there and do things myself. But if I put this car up on jack stands and crawl under it, and one of those jack stands lets go, and this, hundreds and hundreds of pounds of engine comes crashing down on me, if it doesn't kill me, just as an example, it's an imperfect example, but if it's laying there on my chest and I'm pinned, okay, I can know I'm powerless to move this thing off me. That's not going to get the car off of me. Yeah, I'm powerless, and yes, my life is unmanageable. I don't want to be under here. I feel terrible about being under here. I understand all that, okay? But it's not going to get the car off of me. What I need is some power greater than myself to get this car off me in the form of like a jack, okay? Now, how do I know a jack will work? Well, I've seen other people use a jack. It worked for all these other people. I've used it before. I've seen it work, Am I going to sit under this car telling myself, well, it might not work? No, I'm going to use what I need to use to get this thing off of my chest. And the same thing holds true for addiction. When I get that jack and slide it under the car and start working that handle, it's because I believe it will work, okay? And I'm trusting it's going to work. I'm going to put something into this. It takes a certain amount of faith to grab that jack and put it under there and start pumping it for all it's worth to get this thing off my chest. And the same thing with addiction, okay? I know that I can't control it. That's not a solution. That just outlines the problem for me. I know my life is unmanageable because I wanted to die. It wasn't necessarily, going to jail that made my life unmanageable. It's how I felt about going to jail. It wasn't the losing my family that made my life unmanageable. It's how I felt about losing my family that made my life unmanageable. Unmanageability's in here. It's not out there, because if it was out there, just not going to jail would be sufficient. But it's not. When and unfortunately I had been to jail, during my active addiction. I was in jail a few times. And when I went there, I wasn't happy about it. I didn't feel good about myself. I felt guilty and ashamed and all this other stuff. But when I got there, I noticed that there were people there that were right at home. They didn't have any problem being there. They were like there with their friends. They were hanging out. This is normal for them, okay? It wasn't normal for me, and that's what made it a consequence. It wasn't going to jail that made it a consequence. It was how I felt about myself after having gone to jail. That's what made my life unmanageable. It's how I felt about destroying the trust and bond of love that I had with my grandparents and my family. That's what made my life unmanageable, not the act itself. If you lose your spouse but you don't care about her or him or whatever, then it's not a consequence. If I lose my spouse because of my act of addiction and I feel like a piece of garbage because of that, now I have a consequence, and this is what makes my life unmanageable. Okay? Let's understand what it's all about. Powerlessness means using against our will, but it also means acting against our will, doesn't it? Because using doesn't happen in a vacuum. The first thing I have to do is push everybody away out of my life that means anything to me, because they might interfere with my using. And I might use anger for that, hostility, whatever, to push them away so that I can use safely alone. And then I pay an emotional consequence for that, because I've harmed them, haven't I? And I've harmed myself by harming them. Right? We're going to pull through this thing. I'm going to take you through this thing from start to finish, and possibly help you to understand things in a way that you never have before. Okay? For example, in my view, in my personal view, and only in my personal view, this is just my view, my viewpoint. Okay? It's not step 1 that gets us clean. It's not being powerless and unmanageable that gets us clean. It's step 2. Okay, knowing that there's some hope, knowing that there's something out there, be it in the form of a fellowship or of a God or whatever, that there's something out there that can help me, that will work. And I know that this fellowship works because I know people with decades clean. When I went to a meeting and saw somebody celebrate 30 days clean, it was like a shining miracle to me. What could I do to have that? Okay? So it's the hope that I saw in the people picking up just 30 days clean or 60 days clean or a year clean. That gave me hope that if they could do it, I could do it. I knew that they'd been through exactly the same things that I'd been through. They could relate to the feelings that I'd been through, how I'd suffered, how I felt degraded, how guilty I felt, how hopeless I felt. They knew what that felt like, and there they were celebrating a year clean and having cake. Okay? That gave me hope, man. When people relapse and they come back to the program, all I hear people saying is, you must have missed something in the first step. No, you didn't, probably. Okay? You know when you pick up, you're going to be off to the races. You know that if you're an addict. All right? You know that before you ever set foot in the fellowship. That's not news. What we missed was the hope, man. The hope that says, that I can do this. If they can do this, I can do this. And if I can do this, you can do this. Okay? That's what we need. Step 2 says we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. You know what the spiritual principle behind step 2 is? Hope. Hope and belief. Okay? And step 1, the spiritual principle is honesty. Now, these principles are as I see them, as I've learned them. Okay? Other people might have different variations, but this is what it is. Hope and belief in the second step. That's what we need. We need hope. And when we act out on that hope, we believe that this can work for us. We sit in, just going to our second meeting is evidence that we're picking up on our second step. Okay? Because it's an act of hope. Why would I go to another meeting if I didn't see any use to it? If I didn't find hope there in the first meeting, I wouldn't have gone back. But I did. I was uncomfortable sitting there in that chair in this room full of people. I felt sure everybody was looking at me. I wasn't a part of them. You know what? That stuff takes time. You hang in there, okay? You put up your hand in a meeting and say, listen, I'm new. I'm suffering. I need some numbers. I need somebody, let's go to coffee, whatever. Introduce yourself to some people. It's not easy for us. We're not usually social butterflies in a situation like that because we're addicts. But everybody in that room has felt exactly as you do at that moment. And when you start reaching out for help, people will reach back. Okay? They will. They will help you. They will be there for you. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I've had people call me up. I got up, put on coffee, and sat on the phone with them for an hour and a half. Which one of your using friends would have done that for you back then? These people are real. These people have compassion. They understand, they've been there, and they want to help you walk through it too. And you know what? When you reach out to help, to get out for help to them, it helps them too. It helps them stay clean too. We help each other in this fellowship, you know. The third step says we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him, okay? Now, if the word God makes you real uncomfortable, you can choose whatever you want, you know. But, you know, my first concept of a higher power, a power greater than myself, was just the fellowship at hand. And that's all I really needed at the beginning. I just needed to believe that this could work and that these people would help me, and they did. They proved it. Okay? And when they showed me that they would help me, they showed me that they were reaching back out, they showed me that they were including me, you know, I started to believe more and more and more, and I started to trust. Okay? And trust and faith are the spiritual principles behind step 3, in my experience. Okay? We build faith by building in a stepwise fashion, in a blue-collar, workman-like way. Okay? We start with honesty. I can't do this alone. I proved that over and over and over to myself. Every time I tried to stop using, I failed. I felt miserable about myself in my life. That was the unmanageability. Don't get it twisted. Okay? The unmanageability isn't that I don't have a car and a job. The unmanageability is how I feel about myself in here. You know, this is where the unmanageability lives. It's not out there. It's not, you know, if I go buy a new car, then I have recovery. No, it's not. Okay? You go to a job and keep the job long enough, they're going to give you a car if you go to a dealer. Okay? That's no big trick. All right? Just showing up to work every day will get you a car eventually. All right? What I'm talking about is recovery that comes from in here. Because this is where our manageability lies. This is where our disease lies, the disease of addiction. This is where it is, you know? I mean, being an addict is just, it's in our DNA. It's in our DNA. You know, like fish, they swim in the water. And birds fly in the air. And addicts use. It's what we do. Okay? But some fish fly, like flying fish. Right? And some birds swim in the water, like penguins. And some addicts recover. Right? Not all of us do. And that's really sad. But we do. You know, if you're willing to put in a little bit of work and effort, if you're willing to do something different that feels uncomfortable, okay, to step outside the old social circle that you know and exchange those people for some new people that will actually give a damn about you, okay, then it's for you. You can have recovery. You know, we read things at the outset of every NA meeting, and one of the things we read is how it works, right? And how it works says, you know, if you want what we have to offer and you're willing to make the effort to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. What steps are they talking about? The 12 steps, right? If you want it and you're willing to make some effort to get it, then you're ready. Now, I've been to meetings where I heard people with sometimes say, oh, you know, don't work steps for the first year. You've got enough trouble just staying clean. Where does that even come from? I have no clue. That's the most dangerous bunch of nonsense I've ever heard in my life. The steps are where recovery comes from, and the steps are what's going to keep us clean. Okay? If you want what we have to offer, you will make an effort to get it, then you're ready. You don't have to wait any prescribed amount of time. Okay? You're ready right when you're ready. Okay? These are the principles that made a recovery possible, it says. Okay? If you want what we have to offer, you're willing to make the effort to get it, you're ready to take certain steps. These are the principles that made our recovery possible. So without these steps, another way of saying that is without these steps, recovery is therefore not possible. Recovery comes from the step work. This is where recovery comes from. It informs everything else about my life. Okay? I've seen people come to me and you know, they want what I have to offer. And that's cool. You know, you want recovery? I'm perfectly willing to help you. Willing to put in some work? Oh, yes, they assure me. Yes, I am. Well, not always. They're not always willing to make the effort, you know. And I'm like, look, man, this is what we're going to do. This is, oh, yeah, I assure you I'm going to do it. And then they won't want to do it. You got to put out some effort. You got to put something out, you know. Let me put it to you this way. When I first got clean, I decided that, you know, this is going to be a lot of work, and I didn't really feel like doing it or whatever, you know. But I didn't really feel like going back out and using either because I didn't want to live in that hell again. And whatever I had to do to make sure that didn't happen, I was just going to take it on faith. This is what I need to do, so that's what I did. Okay? It worked for me, it can work for you. And I will guide you through this whole thing. See you again in the next video.